Here's to all of you studying, practicing, getting your chops up, getting your shreds on, espresso and a shot glass. Maltese energy drink. How do you know what key you're in? This might sound like a stupid question, but how do you know what key you're in? Are you the person that just kind of goes, oh, let's see if I can find where my pentatonic scale fits, or maybe I know a few notes that give me a clue, or something like that. You might have an intuition, you know, they're playing a lot of E, it's probably in E. But if you don't know, I'd like to teach you, because it's fundamental to know where you are when you are playing something, and especially when you're writing something. So let's talk about, we'll kind of revisit the chord scale that we were just talking about. We talked about a chord scale in C, and I said the scale could become chords. And that those chords combined, you can write tunes, they'll work in any order, so I could play E minor, F, G. It's always going to work, that's the beauty of a key. There is a pattern, the pattern of major, minor, minor, major, major, etc. You know this. There is another pattern. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, which is just simply the steps of the major scale. So those steps, tone being a 2, semitone being a flat 2, yield the major scale. It's what we call the diatonic scale. Now, there are patterns within this chord scale that you can exploit to work out which key you are in. So for example, if we just use the key of G as an example, if I just play part of the chord scale, so a very small excerpt from the chord scale, the 1 chord, the 2 chord, A minor, the 3 chord, B minor, 2 minor chords that are a tone apart. You will only find in this chord scale 2 chords that are a tone apart and are both minor at positions 2 and 3. Now that's really useful, because if you're playing a track and it suddenly goes and you think, well, that's 2 minor chords, they're a tone apart. If I go to the first one, go back a tone, that's the parent major, it's the origin. As in the key of F would have G minor and A minor at 2 and at 3. Now this also occurs somewhere else with different chords. So for example, let's take the key of A major. So these 2 chords, D major and E major, they only happen at that position. They are a tone apart and they are both major chords. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the 4th chord and the 5th chord are always major and major of origin, and they are always at the 4th and 5th position. So you can work your way back and go, well, it must be the 1 must be A. That's the parent major. So once you've established the key, and that's just one method, I call it the jigsaw puzzle method. You go, right, there's a major chord there, another one there, they're a tone apart, has to be 4 and 5. Of course, if you come across a minor 7 flat 5, you know, half diminished chord, although sometimes people will substitute it for just a minor chord. Makes it a bit trickier. Then you know that you are at the 7th chord. And the next step would be home, parent major. Once you've established key, what is the resolving chord? What's the chord that it's based around? That's the next step, especially if you want to know how to apply modes. So for example, let's take this thing that I've just kind of written and jammed on. It's in A. Now, it's based upon a D major scale. Let me play you the D major scale shape that I taught you earlier. In fact, I'll teach you a second octave as well because it's a really useful shape for legato patterns and just general shreddery. I'll talk you through it. So in D major, we're going to go from the 5th fret with the 2nd finger. I know it feels bizarre to start a scale with the 2nd finger, but you'll see why. Little finger to 7, and then we're going 1st finger to the 4th fret on the D string, 2nd finger to the 5th fret on the D string, a little finger reaches out 7th fret, still on the D string, 1st finger comes down to the 4th fret, and then we're going to go 3rd finger to the, where are we for? 6th fret, G string, little finger comes down to the 7th fret, and then we're going to slide the little finger along a tone. 1st finger on the B string 7th fret, 3rd finger on the B string 9th fret, little finger on the 10th fret, down to the next string, 1st finger, and then you can finish it with your 3rd finger here on the 9th. So you get this. And then you can add the little finger at the end. There you go. So, it's a major scale. And in it is contained all of the chords of the key as per usual, the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord. What if I focus on that A? What if I'm playing the A note of this scale predominantly? So here's my D note, E. Here's my A note. Now it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the 5th note of my D major scale. I'm really going to make you hear that A note. The 5th mode of the diatonic major scale is mixolydian. If you focus on the 5th chord of a key, you would be playing mixolydian. So you have to kind of memorize the order of the modes, which we've already discussed: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. Now this is just a riff. What about the chords? I haven't written them yet, but I know that the 5th chord of D major is A. So I want my progression to end and kind of resolve on that A chord. What other chords are available to me? Well, if we're in the key of D major, then I've got a D major. I've got this E, which is going to be a minor because it's my 2nd chord. Maybe that will do. That sounds a little bit kind of like I've heard it a million times before. What about this 3rd note? What about this F sharp? Maybe I want to use that instead. What kind of chord is it? Well, It's not a 1, not a 2, it's a 3, therefore it's minor. So what if I do that? It's got a nice vibe, but do you see what I'm doing? I'm looking at the key, I'm saying, right, the parent, the major is D. I'm focusing, resolving on that A, which is the 5th degree, and it will therefore yield the sound, the effect of Mixolydian. Now you could do this with any of the modes. You could maybe focus on the 4th degree, and you would get the sound of Lydian. If you answered that question before I said it, then congratulations, you're doing really good, because that's really what you need, is to have the mind that says, what key am I in? What does each chord represent? And then how do I exploit that? You know what I mean? You can play any mode with any scale, provided you understand the order in which they fall. So I could play Lydian using a minor scale. So for example, if I wanted to play Lydian in E, then I'm saying that Lydian is in the key of E. This is an E note here. This is my 4th note of a major scale. So after 4, 5, 6. 6 is the beginning of the minor scale. So I could play a minor scale from here, but if you hear an E under it, you would hear Lydian. Let me do the trick. So here's a minor scale. Now if I play the E, so that you're relating it to the 4th degree of the scale, the parent major, then you'll hear Lydian. It's a really fun thing to be able to do, to manipulate the listener by making their brains compare the scale notes from the diatonic scale with a note underneath they're referring back to. Now, the difficulty can come in when musicians like myself and other people will change key when they're writing. So you might see they've got 2 minor chords a tone apart, and then they'll go up and play another minor chord, and you think, wait a minute, well, what happened there? It's 2 minor chords, that means it has to be 2 and 3, and then it's supposed to be a major chord. They've changed key. Because they're really, although there are structures, I'm trying not to call them rules, they are there to be broken. You can change key whenever you want. Does it sound good? Do that thing that sounds good. So experiment. Each note from the diatonic major scale represents a resolve that can cause a mode. So the 2nd would give you Dorian, yeah? And so E major, but 2nd note equals Dorian, so I'll put that on the E. Now I'll play the same scale. Playing the same scale, but because I went from E to A, you were either hearing Mixolydian or you were hearing Dorian. So take some time to think about that, kind of absorb it in, experiment with it. Learn the chords of your chord scale. Maybe learn them as triads, you know, you could do it in D. Just learn them all the way up, open chords, bar chords, whatever you need, provided you can memorize the chords of a chord scale. You will always be able to work out where you are. Being a musician is really hard work. Being a guitarist, it's so competitive. There are so many areas that can give you pitfalls, not to put you off, but it's a difficult job. And the people that tend to make it aren't the people that wanted to make it, they're the people that absolutely had to make it. They had no other option, and therefore they made it. Sometimes it can be a challenge to stay motivated throughout life's hardships. Maybe you've got kids, maybe money is difficult at the moment, maybe you have a health issue. Whatever it is, motivation is the key. And what I want to do is give you the ability to find your own motivational toolkit. You need to learn to access things that motivate you. Everybody has something. For me, it might be a really good coffee in the morning, putting on some Yngwie Malmsteen, or simply breathing deeply and just clearing my mind, even if it is just for 4 breaths. It makes such a big difference to your day if you can start that way. Something else that's important is to find the time. Often as a dad and as a guy with a couple of businesses, I would find that the lack of time would make me panic and stress, and that I would feel undermotivated and I wouldn't have the energy to work. To get more time, you need to think smarter and you need to get up earlier if you can. I would often do a lot of the donkey work in the morning so that throughout the day I had more time to focus on creative things. This is really important because a lot of people wake up and they firefight their day because it's just what they're used to doing. Try to work smarter, get things prepped, whether it's food or whether it's anything that you would do in your day. Make the time. The next thing is space. A lot of people don't have the space to make the noise or to work. You've got to be creative. I hire an affordable local studio, but often I'll work in my flat in between my baby taking a nap. And that changed my gear. So for example, I use quieter amplifiers, or sometimes I don't plug in at all, I'd be playing acoustic. The thing is, avoid the mental route of not doing things because I can't do them, and instead, just find a way around and do the things that you can do. Do the things that you can do will get you through any problem with that. Stay motivated and don't forget, positive mental octopus.